Hello and welcome back to the Brain Jar. It's been a little while, but literally right before the Counter Strike season resumes, we bring you the content that you are so desperately craving. The podcasts. Just one more podcast is the famous line. I'm here with my fellow co-hosts for today, Sift. Hello, Sift.
Hello, it's been a while.
It has been a while, and Yosh, our resident Asian Counter Strike expert. You can call him an expert, but it's some would call it a delusion. I think. What do you think?
Is there a difference?
That's true. That is true. I mean, we've all got our delusions and a little bit of a rebrand. I mean, you might see the logo hand drawn by yours truly. I can't proclaim to be an artist, but it's a brain in a jar of some description. In fact, nobody's seen it but me, so it's going to be a surprise until it goes out. But
Yeah, literally 30 minutes before now.
yes, I was drawing it while waiting. We were supposed to have a fourth guest. We may still have a fourth guest if you're watching this and you skip to like in 40 minutes from now. There is a fourth guest. Well, time travel. But it's a left brain, right brain situation. This is not scientifically fully accurate, I think. But neuroscientists, if you're watching this, what are you doing? You've got more important things to do. But left brain, analytical, well thought out, reasoned. Right brain, emotional, vibes based. Very simple. Allows for much more freedom. So I'll start us off because I know what everyone's bringing to the table. I've made it easier to direct the conversation here. And I think this one, I feel like people will agree with me, but it would be remiss of me if we didn't talk about the HLTV Top 20 and the HLTV Awards, right? And my left brain, my reasoned position is that the HLTV Top 20 is simply just more obsolete than their actual awards now. They have stuff like Best Anchor, Best IGL, Best OPA, Best Entry, right? Because every year we have the same conversation about how results affect awards, about sample size of maps and what that means for the ranking, and how team success is relevant, what kind of things the ranking rewards, the random stats that end up in that page image that they post on each new player, which is very arbitrary at times. And I think at this point, it's you'd be as a player, it would mean a lot more for you to get, for instance, the third or fourth best anchor or entry in your role, as that's what you're kind of striving for, rather than being in the top 20 just by itself. Kind of, it seems like a legacy based system that's like got a good record of maybe history and what things meant throughout the years. But as a player, I think it's just less meaningful. What do you guys think about it?
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely, it's a draw for the crowd who haven't necessarily watched a lot of CS, but
Mm.
I think some people have said that maybe they come up with their decision for who's like top 3 or whatever, or top 5, and then I don't know. There's a lot of discussion about as you said, should like team results matter in like top 20 player. Um, it is admittedly very uncommon for a player to who's got like less good team results to get number one. I think the last time it happened was Simple versus Device in Astralis peak year. Where Simple got number one, even though Device had won 2 majors that year. Um, is it outmoded? I don't know. It's the problem is it's very obtuse as to their decision making, and like if you don't have a clearly defined set of parameters for like what you're going to have as a top 10, it's very much a vibes based thing in terms of like if somebody leaves HLTV who's on the decision committee, right? That means you then inherently can't compare any results before that year to after that year, right? Because they haven't set out a clearly defined judgment of where of what people should expect to count towards the results, and I think that that sort of limits them in terms of in most other sports and such, if you have, a top 20 or whatever, you'll have a pretty clearly defined set of like what you can expect to contribute towards results, but that's not been clear for the entire time in the top 10,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
20.
yeah.
Sorry.
Josh, what do you think?
Oh yeah, like I'm going with. I've never really paid attention to HLTV awards, but yeah, I don't think it actually matters as a lot of people say because like HLTV are not officially part of Bulb and like I think most players would still prefer to get trophies and medals from the events itself, like ESL and Blast. Like they get the trophy, they get the medal. I think that's still more important than HLTV. Like HLTV is only there because it was like what they are they're the biggest. What's that word? The word that
Like
like the
organization, like
organization
the
that
yeah,
tracks the
yeah,
stats
news
and all
site,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, news site. Yeah, news site. Yeah, they're only there to like report the news and track the statistics of players, which is like they are the best at doing that. So there is some merit to there is some merit if HLTV says that you are the best at like a certain role like Opera Anchor or you have the highest number of a certain stat. But I believe that at the end of the day, like just get winning events and medals is still more important than just having a high placement at a news site or an article.
yeah. I think
Like,
that's true. At the end of the day, also, I mean, sort of my problem with the HLTV top 20 was also that it's because, as you said, sort of year on year, some things might change, and the criteria for who's in the top 20 is a little bit like different. I just think because regardless through different eras of Counter Strike, like CS:GO, passive plays maybe were more rewarded. In CS2 now we've got aggressive players, we've got Donk and the rest, right, which is more rewarded. Perhaps as a vague generalization, I just think it's more valuable, especially as players. Generally speaking, that not many players are like super flexible in their roles. Most players generally, I would say, stick to the role that they do. And so I think it's just more valuable to, as a discussion point and as an award, like if you're the third best or second best anchor of a year, I just think it means more than if you ended up like 20th on the ranking, because I think you would feel more accomplished. And I think that's the only problem, is that because those awards haven't been around for that long, I think maybe if they keep doing the HLTV award show, and in 10 years, because they have the profile stuff, I think they have like best anchor on the actual profile now. So if that keeps going on, that I think eventually people will care about that more.
and to add to that, yeah, I think it's better if you yourself, like you, me, ourselves, just decide who do you think is the top 20, top 10 player, who's the best anchor and opera, then like have HLTB say it themselves. Because as if said, like the process is not, the committee isn't that transparent. We don't know what they're really basing the awards on and placements. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
But I
personally
think
we would know better.
there's some value to that. But some people who are on the awards committee, which is separate from the top 20, like I think Maui Snake is on the, like he mentions like what nominations and some reasoning and stuff. But I do think some transparency, like what you're suggesting, transparency in like after the fact who people voted for and some reasoning, like just actual like I feel like in all award shows, you kind of want to know who's like from people who are deciding it and having the input, why they ended up making certain nominations.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's probably a good point to pivot into Sift. I think one of your takes. I'll let you choose which one would be more appropriate in this conversation.
Um,
I think you're Spirit
Sorry.
one if you're having trouble deciding, because
Yeah, I
we do
phased
need to
out
talk
for a
about.
little bit.
No, that's fine. We should probably talk about some teams and some players and Spirit.
Yeah. So my logical take is that Spirit, with their recent roster change, has a clear firepower boost, especially over Chopper. Zwei, I think could have. I think has the potential to become a much better player, but I think he was maybe not. I mean, I think again it's partially Chopper's fault for not fitting him into the system properly. He wasn't playing the roles which he was really used to as much. I don't know if that was up to Howley or Chopper, but yeah, it definitely didn't do him the best like favors. But not only is Donk getting back like two of his like players who he really gets along well with. Supposedly Magix is like co-called back when he was on the team before with Chopper. If Halley can mold him into a proper IGL, this team could finally be a proper challenger to Vitality, I think. I mean, it's crazy. I'm pretty sure with Chopper leaving, that's dropped the average age of the core like 5 years or something. I don't know if it's that bad, but like, it was pretty crazy. I think Chopper was not good enough for really a tier 1 team anymore, especially in the last few months, last few events. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
It's
pretty.
sort of a boring take, but
No, I mean it's boring, but I feel like every year we start the year with the conversation: is this finally the year that Donk's like delusional performances that don't get worse and only get better? Is this the year that they actually translate to like bigger legacies than they already are? Which is crazy to think that the conversation we're having is he's done so much, but he should be doing more. It's kind of like when you step away from it, it's a bit crazy. But Yosh, what do you think of the new Spirit moves? Before I give mine.
The new Spirit move, I'd say it's a side grade. Like removing Chopper is definitely good, but we still haven't seen like Magistic IGL. We don't know how good Magistic IGLing would be, and I think it does not necessarily like solve the fundamental problem I think Spirit has. Is that they focus on like building up Donk and Shiro too much. Like it feel like the team keeps playing around Donk and Shiro while neglecting the three other players. When I think that in CS2, the meta where you build around a superstar is no longer as efficient, and it's better to build around the team.
I mean, again, it's impossible to tell whether they'll change stylistically over like how Chopper, because all we've ever seen Donk playing is in tier 1 is Donk's is Chopper's system. And Chopper's system didn't really seem to be a system of any kind, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It
But I guess the question is also how much of this is Halley, because in your take itself, part of it is sort of bank. You need to bank on Halley for if you want to predict positively about Magic's IGO.
I mean, supposedly Magic's was like secondary calling on Spirit back when he was on the team.
The tech doesn't really bode well, but
I mean, it depends, right, on
yeah,
like
yeah.
which parts he was calling.
But
I
let
mean,
me put it this way:
yeah.
if Magisk keeps what his previous performance was and the calling stays pretty much the same, how much better is Spirit with Tenier and Zontix and all that?
I would say if their calling was exactly the same, but they had the firepower boost of Magix over Chopper, even if it was just the same performance as he was before. Supposedly he's been improving over the break from play. I'd say they go up at least a few spots, right? Like if you look at the where is it? Like top what stats? No, I'm trying to have a
You're trying to
look,
get to like the
find
team rating or whatever it is, the T side or whatever.
Yeah, the
The foot.
VRS. I'd say they definitely go above like Navi and more consistently could beat Falcons. Because like it was always really quite close between Falcons and Spirit, and Spirit even managed to beat them for the first time in the major. So yeah, I think even without like an IGL boost, I think at the very least there's going to be a honeymoon period where Donk plays out of his mind because he's happy he's got his friends back. Unironically.
That's true.
I think that, but obviously you can't rely on honeymoons. I think that it very much depends, as you said, on Hallie and on Magix. If Magix can be even 50% better of an IGL than Chopper was, just like get that 50% more out of players, or well, not you know what I mean. I think that they seriously become a proper contender. But if Magix is just sort of about the same as Chopper, at least he's a firepower boost, and that's firepower isn't enough, as we've seen in Falcons. They've very much superstar maxed, but I think that for Spirit, at least with the sort of Russian style of play, even without like someone like a Jame or whatever, as an IGL, I think that they're gonna improve at least.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean,
I've been rambling on.
no,
saying the same
that's fair.
thing.
I was just checking, like, because obviously for Spirit to be a proper challenger, we have to see who they could be better than. And the weird thing is, at the time of recording this, I think we have like no roster changes in like the top 10. Like, I don't like nobody's doing anything, which puts us in an interesting position in terms of like,
Yeah,
okay,
the only
Spirit made moves and nobody else
Spirit
did.
and Mongols.
Yeah, but
Mongols
of course,
replaced
that was a stand-in
controllers.
situation, so we sort of knew that was coming. We didn't know that
Yeah.
Senzoku would come back, but now that that's passed, besides the point, we'll be talking a lot more.
I mean, it makes sense for Vitality to not make any
Yeah, of
changes
course.
because
Falcons is the interesting one.
Falcons is the interesting one that they haven't got rid of Zonic still.
That, but also I feel like Tessus and Kickson still being on the team. I'm not saying they shouldn't or should be. I'm just saying Falcons usually.
Well, who would you have IGL instead? I mean,
well, it's either Nico
who
or
would
it wasn't Alexi B. They were trying to, or was that just like Telegram shadiness? And
there
not
was
actually a
rumors that
real-
they were going for Alexi B. There were rumors last year that they were going for Apex, but like neither of them have real reason to leave their current
Well, I don't
teams.
think Apex would leave. I think Vitality can pay him enough that winning is important. I don't think he's wanting for cash. But I mean, if we're
FaZe is an interesting. Why didn't they make any changes?
well, it's because they made the major final, and they didn't have anybody. Nobody was. None of the players are really in like a position to be plucked out of FaZe right now. It's like a weird. Do we have?
Brokey
I don't think we
always
have any
manages
phase
to
points.
pull it out of the bag
We
right
can take
when
a
he's
phase
about to be
tangent
kicked.
here
It's
because I
so
don't think we have
stupid.
any phase points. But because listen, phase is the conversational gift that keeps on giving. Like,
Yeah.
the thing about like both Frozen and Twist, they're in a position where I think Twists can't do better because Twist is like jailed to Kerrigan for his performance. Like, I feel like he's humbling himself by going back to the well on this. Frozen is also like, I feel like if you're under Kerrigan's spell, then you don't leave. And it seems like everybody there is under Kerrigan's spell.
I mean, the annoying thing is, Brokey should have been kicked, and then he pulls out this ridiculous performance at the major, And this is the same thing that happened last year.
It's true.
Why did he like shit the bed for half the year, and then as soon as his contract's on the line, he plays out of his mind?
Yosh, what do you think of FaZe?
I haven't really paid much attention to a FaZe as well. Like, it's not a team I follow. It's not a fan of them, but I think it might actually be time for Kerrigan to go.
We've been saying this every year.
Yeah. Like, I know he has a strong legacy. He has done a lot of things at IGL, and I mean, the job he has done this year in FaZe, I wouldn't say it's actually that terrible as well, but if FaZe really wants to be like top 5 or contending or for a trophy again, it needs both more firepower and a new system, because Kerrigan's one hasn't been working for. When's the last time FaZe won a trophy?
Yeah, but the thing is, do FaZe care? That's kind of my other question. It seems like they don't care.
I would assume most orgs would care, like they would prefer if their team was winning. So
It's true.
like I'm assuming FaZe probably has discussed this before. Like,
Well, yeah,
would be
but
crazy if they had.
that's also the reason that what do you call it? The Rain move, Kerrigan was not the one piloting that move, right? That was a FaZe organization, and also recently FaZe itself split. Like the esports side is fully divorced from the other content creation side as well. So if FaZe are gonna be run, yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry.
No. Okay, what I was saying was just that if FaZe are gonna be run like any other sort of aspirational top esports team brand, if like a G2, but like, G2 also is not in a position to win like consistently. They're maybe better than FaZe are, like in terms of winning. They at least won something one time, but I wouldn't call that. There's a lot of these teams are not really making moves to fight to the very top anymore. That's what it feels like.
I think, yeah, I do think you're right there. I think FaZe is in an interesting position in terms of, if I remember correctly, their esports division is actually profitable, and their like streaming content side wasn't, which was one of the reasons for this whole split thing, because they wanted to pay the content creators less, and then they didn't want to be paid less, and so a lot of them left and all that stuff. I think that as long as the esports side is profitable, I don't think management is going to push super hard for them to win, because I think a lot of people watch FaZe to be entertained. Like, obviously people want to, as somebody who's been like a watcher of FaZe for like 6-8 years, I don't know, I would say like the entertainment comes first, almost with FaZe, it seems. Obviously they want to win, I'm not taking that away from them, but at the very least, to management, I think it's realistic to say that they don't necessarily care as long as the business remains profitable, which a lot of esports orgs aren't. And as far as I can tell, FaZe, even though they're not doing like great, they seem to at least be able to keep going, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. They're sustaining a little bit, but I was just thinking, it seems like, and the only teams, there's only 3 teams that are actually trying to like build legacy / win lots of trophies, and I think it's Vitality, Falcons, and Spirit, and I think it's pretty much only because they have like the 3 top. Well, Monacy maybe is on the fringe of falling out of that conversation, which we may talk about later.
Monacy's a little.
But in theory,
this isn't a
right?
take, but I think he's a little washed.
Yeah, but like in theory, he's supposed. Well, he's not washed yet. He's
He's not washed. That's an over exaggeration.
He's not Donk. He's not Donk Zaiwu right now.
He's not he's not able to close it. He's inherited the same curse from Nico. It seems he's not able to close it in the majors.
He's not doing. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, that's true. Maybe we can squeeze that in down the line. But it's like if you look at like Furia's success recently, they did not intend for it to go this well, right? It just sort of the gamble paid off big time. It seems like that's the kind of like most teams that are outs that used to be in that conversation of like they're gonna try and make moves for trophies have shifted to like the gear below that, which is like be opportunistic and hope that luck is bottled in your team. I think that's the situation that FaZe, Mouse, Navi, Furia, G2, and Liquid was trying
yeah,
and failing. But
it's really a shame that like. I think it's partially the fault of the VRS, but I don't know how you fix it.
no,
That
that's
all of
true.
these teams are not willing to make the risks on like more than one or two players being replaced by like new players who aren't in the top 10 because they don't want to lose their VRS ranking. And I think that that's really sad because I think if we don't start taking risks, if the scene doesn't start taking risks on younger players, we're going to end up in a situation where all of the current players are geriatric, basically, and you've got like 10% of the new pro player base being tier 1, and then you're gonna lead to a situation where all of the Zorgs are forced to switch over to new players, and we're going to have a really shit time watching because all of these tier 2 players being brought up to tier 1 are going to have to, basically relearn everything.
Yeah. I think this is actually a good point to pivot, Yosh, to one of your points. Your point about how what's the teams next year compared, or this year, I guess, compared to last year.
I actually want to go back to the point like about monarchy. Or the
Okay,
thing is,
yeah,
I
you can
don't
talk
really
on that.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Even though I dislike monarchy because he's in Falcons, I just dislike Falcons in general.
That's fair.
I don't actually think monarchy is washed. I think
That
like
that
his
was a
stats.
joke, to be
Well,
fair. I
it's like
don't
a
think he's
joke with
actually
a
washed.
hint of seriousness.
But yeah, I just think like the reason like his stats and Nico may be a bit washed. Nico was not that good this year, but I think the bigger thing causing them their stats to drop is not because they joined Falcons, but rather like 2025 is just really competitive. Their opponents just became way better.
Yeah, so this kind of segues into your point about how your stagnation point, right? Go on that now.
Yeah, but yeah. Firstly, like 2025 has been the most competitive year in Counter Strike history. I think that this was the best year in CS history, like in
Hey,
just
that's hey,
terms of
you're
the game.
overlapping on one of my points. Hold on that one. Talk about the.
Yeah.
That's very similar. We'll go on that after. But what your prediction for the
E-
stagnation this year?
Yeah, I just thought that like if the roster mania keeps going the way it's going and like teams don't really upgrade and keep side grading, I think 2026 isn't gonna be as competitive as this year. Like because I already see many of the teams like Vitality, Furia, MongolZ, and the rest. They have plateaued basically in season 2 during season 2 2025. Like they're not really bringing anything new. They're just refining what they have, and there's only a limit to how much you can refine the system you already got. Like I feel like a lot of teams are finally already reaching Vitality's level, and not their level, but rather build their strat book and their system. And after that, I don't see any team really being able to improve much more, and we'll just see more of the same in 2026.
Yeah. So I think because I think what sort of gives credence to your like point about how teams are gonna just not gonna level up that much. At least I think definitely we can say in the first season of 2026 we're not gonna see that much difference in the complexion of top teams. Partially, obviously, because of the roster moves, but it feels like because of the way the year ended, I think people like because Vitality didn't dominate the entire year, right? They had their first season of unstoppable force, and then they were sort of almost they were like at the edge of falling down, but obviously still very insanely competitive in playoffs. And then because they ended the year with the major, I feel like teams are sort of going like, okay, if we roll the dice differently, we can just win. Like we're so close. I feel like everyone is thinking we're so close, and I might have to agree on that. Like, short of a miracle of like some teams that have been working on something, finally something clicks. I feel like most teams we've seen like that haven't make a roster move. We've seen what we need to see from them. What do you think, Siv?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So I think the general point is that like 2026, most teams are gonna stagnate and it won't be as competitive as last year. And I think like what I was saying.
I mean, I would disagree.
What do you think? What do you
I
think?
would disagree that yesterday was super
Last year, you mean? Yeah.
competitive. Yeah, last year, yeah.
Well, it was almost yesterday, to be fair.
Yeah. At least the first half of the year, I mean, it was Vitality and everyone else, let's be honest. I think people have sort of the recency bias of like second half of the year where it was between Vitality and Furia a lot, and then what Falcons won like one event.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think definitely we're going to see some stagnation. I do agree with that. Like none of the top teams have taken any risks really. I think we're going to see some surprise. I mean, I don't want to jump immediately into my next point, but because we haven't gone through all the logical points, have we? Or
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's fine. But
Yeah, because I do think that some of the lower ranked teams who have taken more risks might be able to. We might see them up in the top.
you think it'll be like a sort of shake up from the bottom up, you mean, rather than like from the top?
I don't think it's going to be a full shake up.
No.
I don't think the established hierarchy is going to be completely shaken up that much, but I do think that some of the smaller teams and some of like 100 Thieves as a project looks somewhat interesting. Like they're taking risks on newer players at
very
least.
disagree, but
Okay.
I mean, okay, like the new players is maybe the most interesting part, but Rain and Device just fill me with dread being in this team. I think with
I think that.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I think that with any set of, it's better than going straight all new players like Mal's back when they like first came up. I mean this roster without Xerxin. Was it Xerxin?
Which one?
No. This Mal's roster without they brought someone on
Spinks?
for experience. Yeah, that's it. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I think that it's, a better idea to at least have some people who have a lot of experience who can pass on that knowledge. I don't necessarily know if 100 Thieves is gonna. I mean, they're gonna obviously be keeping on device for a long period of time because you don't get. Even now, device still probably costs a fair bit of money. Rain, however, I think that they probably got him for pretty cheap, relatively, because Rain had already been benched. Like I think FaZe definitely will have got what they could have from him, but I think that I don't know. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be world beaters, but I think that they could definitely end up top 20.
I mean, I guess if I wanted to see a new organization reach the top 20, I could just like that's kind of a dime a dozen, that makes them almost less interesting, the fact that they're just gonna scrape around at the top. It's like Gen 2 Mates is number 25. I can't say I'm excited for Gen 2 Mates really. It's to say it's like it's
I
around.
don't know what ranking you're looking at.
Oh,
Are you looking at the HLTV or the Valve
let me
ranking?
check the Valve one. They're probably high. They're not higher on that. They were pretty close to making the major though. Or 27. Well, it's 2 off. I mean,
Okay,
like number 20
but
is NIP, and I really cannot like bring myself to care about ninjas in pajamas. So if you're telling me to be interested in 100 Thieves for that reason, like if especially considering the brand, and I think we sort of just had that conversation about what brands are like, what they're doing
yeah,
aspirationally, and I think 100 Thieves are definitely not going for trophies to start. They're starting at the bottom and building up, which I think that part's fine. I think maybe in a year I can be interested in them when they've picked maybe 1 or 2 of these guys is good. Maybe Ren IGL works, maybe it doesn't, and the other 3 can be piece by piece kicked out. Device retires because I'm tired of him. I guess I can end the
Wow.
sentence there. I'm done. I'm just done
Wow.
with. He's done so much. It's like, okay, I can respect Simple's grinding from the bottom. That's like he's playing a bit of Dota here and there. But maybe now he'll lock in that he's got a core that can attend events. But like Device, I feel like it's just been a very slow and depressing, worse and worse and worse. I feel like nobody's happy to see it.
I'm not quite. I don't know.
Yosh, what do you think of 100 Thieves?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. The same as you. Like, I have very little hope for like 100 Thieves in general. I think they got a few young players, right? They've got a few young players other than Raiden Device, but I think this team's max potential is like top 15 max, and I don't even think they're gonna reach that. And I think like I will say that the mentality of 100 Thieves is pretty fucked. Like Messi also, he like tweeted out that he said he's gonna skip a few qualifiers and only focus on the main events that they could join. Like what? Like I think there is some logic to that maybe he wants to preserve Device's mental health and maybe that like he's more confident if he has more time to prepare for like fewer events so they can at least guarantee more wins. But I think that's like a coward's mindset. I think Messi also is a coward for like not grinding as much as he can. Like he's going into this with the mindset of playing smarter and not harder, but that's just not how tier 2 works in my opinion. In tier 2 or yeah, especially in tier 2, you have to just grind as much as you can. You need that experience and the that momentum, the momentum of like winning as much as you can in order to elevate your team. I think that's way more important when you're not as good as the top dogs. And like by skipping some qualifiers, he's missing out on the valuable chance of playing more.
Yeah, I think that's true. But Misioso's kind of not counterpoint, but justification for that is sort of going upon what's it called? Like VR, not tanking a VRS with losses. That's like the wins network. I'm not going to explain the whole VRS system here, but I mean, you can check it. There's a few Twitter accounts, and I mean, you can just look at the GitHub yourself. Not that anybody really is good at that, but the gist of it is he wants to preserve the VRS and only play when he knows he can get the wins. But I do agree. And another thing to put to that point is that Rain notoriously hated the online era, hated that grinding system. There are more lands like now, the VRS like evolution. So there's a point to be made about that. Of course, then you have to consider devices schedule. Like it's a whole. There's a lot of barriers and like I mean, Sift, I don't mean to like. I'm just interested to see.
It's
like,
not one of my takes.
No,
It's just like
but it's an opinion. So I'm poking at it a little bit.
No, that's entirely fair. I just, I've always got that little bit of hope for Device. I can spare time. I can make time for him a lot of the time. But also, I think that all I meant was it being interesting is that like they seem to be one of the only orgs actually taking like some risks on newer players in terms of like a majority of newer players rather than like one replacement. And I mean, as we've just said, the top 10 have like no changes apart from Spirit and like Mongols were forced to.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. From that, I can understand that. I just think that if they wanted to do that, I would have preferred they take the risks on one of the two older players' spots, either the IGL or the AWP. Having both of those be older is concerning to me. But anyway, we'll move forwards.
Wait.
Yeah,
Just
go
one
on,
more
go
point.
on.
One more, please. Actually, two more. Yeah, I think like firstly, just a really quick point. I think you can afford to like play it smart instead of hard if you're like Vitality when you're already the best of the world and you just want to win the big events and nothing else. But secondly, more importantly, I think like it might. I generally believe it might be time for Device to retire.
Well, if this team doesn't
Like,
work out, I think so.
well, like he just like he either needs to retire or like take it easy and just hang out with his friends like Oscar does at this point because like after Singapore, like it is shown he just doesn't really have the mental to compete at the top level anymore. It's just too stressful for him, and I'm actually quite worried about his health, like going into like such competitive CS. He just feels really tired and really burnt out, even after so much breaks. Like he
Yeah,
just
maybe so. I don't think I don't think it's necessarily like, a massive concern for his health, but there has been a decline. I won't deny that, but I still think he has the ability to hang in the top 20,
yeah,
if he really wants to.
if he really wants to, but like even though then I think it's just top 20. I don't really think he can enter the top 10 again for a long period. Maybe he may be able to fluke one or two events that gets him in the top 10, but I don't think it's a long term thing anymore. Like the Vice is just way
Mm.
past his prime, and he just doesn't have the fire inside him anymore. It might. I think it's actually just time for him to retire and maybe go into a analyst role.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
we'll see. I think this year will decide that fate for him for sure, though.
Yeah, I
But
can agree with that.
yeah, I think we've let's talk about the. It's not really an elephant in the room. I think est, we should talk about your vibes based take.
So I might get lynched for this,
Well,
but I do think that simple. Maybe it's just the sort of rose tinted mask almost. But I think simple will be able to carry BCGAME to get top 5 in an event this year.
well, five. Okay,
Um,
first before you continue, I have a question. What does top five in an event mean? It's a very weird number for an event ranking.
right. So I mean, usually,
There's like 4, 6, 8.
yeah, I know. Well, I guess I should have put top 6,
Yeah,
but
like
what I meant more is that I think simple by himself can probably, especially as he the first few months in BCGAME, he seemed to like be trying, and then he realized he was just playing versus tier 2 shitters and really stopped seeming to care again. Until he was in like he it was entirely based on the like rewards in each event, right? So um in the tournament where it determined whether BCGAME would reach ESL Challenger League, he was really trying, and they didn't make it. And I think that was like the last point last year at which he was like trying hard. That was one of the last events of the year, to be fair. But I think that now he might have, a chance to get into pro events, and obviously he's going to ESL Krakow with BCGAME this year, this month even. I think that he seems a lot more motivated, and I think that in terms of top 5 is what I mean is like, I think his level of skill might, I don't know if it's the level where he could like carry a team single-handedly to the semifinals or whatever, but I think he could get to the like just before playoffs, you know. I think he could get a team just just before playoffs.
But that's kind of a
If
step down from your top 5. That's like 9th or 7th on the ESL events.
I mean, as in like stadium playoffs, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but like stadium playoffs in ESL events is top 6.
Hmm.
You know, like, are you saying like, is he gonna make it in the quarters? Is he gonna make it in the semis? Because like where that is depends. That depends. That decides my
Yeah, it
response
depends on
basically.
the take. Um, you know what? Fuck it. I feel like my thinking is he's really going to be trying this year so that he can get transferred out of BCGAME into like a proper top 10 team. I think that very much depends on like how his major performance goes and like is it Cologne or Katowice that's first? I keep forgetting. Um, but
Well,
how well
Katowice
his
is
big
now
event.
not a. It's Krakow, right?
Right, yes, sorry. That's why I got
Yeah,
confused.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Katowice is now the ESL Pro League playoffs,
Right.
which is anyway.
That's very silly. That's a whole other discussion though.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
do think that he at least wants to be in like that tier 1 opposition again. I think he has the ego to like really like not be able to stand Zaiwu like beating his MVP record and like stuff like that. And whether he's got the skill to back that ego up is up in the air. I think he's got it in him, but like, yeah, I'd say maybe he's got enough to them into a quarterfinals in the first half of this year. If they don't get a good placement in an event in the first half of the year, I'm not sure if his motivation will continue through.
I think that's quarterfinals. I honestly think that's fair, especially if you're including the like PGO tier of events. Because I think
Yeah.
if a half decent result, couple of like 1 or 2 decent wins to add to their VRS, BCGAME can get invited to the PGLs of the season, or the Blasts even. But the Blasts teams attend because of the frequent flyer points, etc., etc. But I think a playoffs at a PGL is honestly plausible for BCGAME, especially like their acquisition of the core. I think Muteris is gonna actually do some decent work with Simple. Like, I'm not gonna have any grand claims that I'm not saying like, oh, he's insanely underrated. But I think with the potential, Simple's got flashes. I think that's what's always like, even in this current form, like as what we saw in that phase stand-in situation, like on the stage he didn't do very well, but before that point there was like moments where people were like, there's a little bit in him still. And I think like in quarterfinals, I think he can make it there. I think beyond that, you sort of have to hope for like the perfect parlay to hit of BCGAME results. Like, it feels like, I mean, this is sort of a tangential point, but about Simple's performance, I feel like for Simple to return to like great, like even top 20 level, if we're talking like the bottom of top 20, I think you need the right string of events to happen in terms of performances and opportunities for him to get hungry again. I think he needs to see crowds. I think he needs to feel that energy multiple times and also be humbled. Like, if he just farms online cups this whole year and never,
Yeah.
like, if he just loses group stages to teams that he should lose to anyway, then I don't think anything will happen. I think he'll just like, it'll sort of fade away. But yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I've always been sorry.
now go on.
I've always been a massive proponent of the idea that some people really are fixed on this notion that like reaction time and stuff like that is super
No, yeah, I
linked
don't
to
think that's
age,
a
and once you're beyond a
conversation.
certain, once you'll be, I'm going somewhere with the
Yeah,
point.
yeah, okay, go on, go
That
on.
like, that like once you're beyond a certain age, you can't play, and I think that's been handily disproven by several players at this point. Apex being like one of the most recent ones, but I think the biggest issue is always motivation, right? And the reason you see older CS players start to do worse is they get other priorities in life, right? They get wives, husbands, kids, all that sort of stuff. And suddenly playing a video game doesn't seem to like be your priority, especially if you want to spend time with those people, and practice takes up 12 hours a day at least. So I don't think it's necessarily an age thing with s1mple or with any of these players. I think it is very much motivation in terms of sure, they might still want to win, but they don't necessarily have that fire in them that a brand new player who's never played in a major would have in them.
Yeah.
I think so it's all very much dependent on does s1mple still have that fire? I think he's got the ego. Does he have the fire behind it?
Yeah, that's fair. Yosh, what do you think? BCGAME in a playoffs. Do you think it's plausible this year?
BCGAME, like, what was I talking? I was thinking a point about BC. Yeah, but I don't think that they'll be like top 4, 75, but I do think they could potentially be in playoffs because I don't think a lot BCGAME are as bad as a lot of people say make it out to be. Like, they actually have a decent core in Sword. The Sword core is definitely not bad at all. They are pretty solid, and they have a decent system. And like, I would say, even though I don't have much hope in like s1mple making a comeback, I still don't think he's gonna really take it seriously. At least I see there is a path of s1mple being potentially even top 20 again in the HLTV thingy. Like, I could see him becoming a great opera again.
Yeah.
At least the potential there. That's already more than Device. I just see no hope for Device. But unlike Device, I think like s1mple still got that dog in him. He just really needs to take this seriously and bring it out.
Yeah, I think there's another two things. First one, I do think that in this was sort of in a dearth of APAC like talent, right? Like MongolZ is like the reaffirmation that it can happen, but we're sort of in like the drop off is crazy from like the top few to the rest, which has not really been the case before, right? But another thing that we all completely forgot is that Taz is the coach of BCGAME now. I think does that
Wait,
is that not did I hallucinate that headline? Taz is the coach of BCGAME, right?
is Taz the coach?
Yes, Taz is
Yep.
coaching BCGAME.
And not the old Thor one.
No, it's Taz. That's
Oh,
so.
okay, I take that back. BCGAME so fucking good.
I was gonna say.
I think-
BCGame's actually-
Honestly, I think they
Muturis
got
is
a
good.
coach just because they need a coach.
That's true,
don't
but like,
think-
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
if you're gonna do
electronic
something,
now.
I think it matters. I think you need a coach.
I think s1mple wants to be left alone and is
Well,
very
you should grow up
bored
then.
with the sort of micromanaging style of Blade. And so he was just like, let's get somebody who will literally fill the technical role of coach rather than actually.
Well, I think he wants the vibes coaching rather than the management coach. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, but like even in Blade system, it's not like s1mple was that restricted. I mean, he must have maybe more so than Taz. I mean, anyone's arguing that. But I mean, also,
Yeah.
if that's the case, honestly, I think s1mple should get a reality check if that's literally what he thinks. He's not 2018 or 2021 anymore. Like, if you want that kind of belief, then you really
Yeah.
got to put that kind of performance out into the server.
I don't even think s1mple is the toxic or problem piece on BCGAME. I think like s1mple definitely has a lot of potential and definitely can elevate the team. I think the problem piece is definitely electronic.
We didn't even talk about electronic. Yeah, of course.
Why the fuck did they sign electronic? Like, unless like he's like s1mple's boyfriend or something. Like what does electronic contribute to the team?
Yeah.
I think he's just going to drag the entire
I
thing
think
down.
a lot of teams, a lot of players rather, make moves based on emotion rather than on like logic. Okay, I think that you forget that a lot of these players are not like Carrigan. Carrigan at least lived a life before playing. He decided to go to university and stuff like that, right? A lot of these people are emotionally stunted people who play very good Counter Strike. That's not meant to be a roast. It's just sort of true, right? So I don't know if necessarily they're the best people for like making roster decisions.
It's true, but like I mean, BC Game in itself, it's a weird thing. I don't know how serious of a team they are. I don't have a like. It's a weird mix of like, okay, you pay in probably some delusional, like more than it maybe is worth money for Simple for some short term deal. You've got the gambling money maybe, so that's probably why. And then you get Electronic presumably because he asked for it. But then you sign the core of a team intended to like as like a VRS cynical VRS move. But then there's also Taz. Like I don't know what to take of them as an org. I don't even like I don't get it. I guess.
Yeah, knowing Taz, they're like that he's not gonna be able to control Electronic, and the entire thing is just gonna crash and burn.
I don't think. Here's the thing: Electronic. You could since he's not IGLing and he's not making any decisions. I think if he just shuts up and like Simple may have told him like behind closed doors, like bro, I pulled a huge favor to get you in here. Just look at your crosshair, please. If he did that, I think we can have a bit of hope. Like if Electronic opens his mouth, anything except comms comes out of his mouth, that team is in trouble. I think as long as he just runs in, gets a kill, dies, and says like 1B, the whole team can move forwards. Like he needs to have zero ego, which I think is difficult because he's succeeded. So he's got such a like great history of being a top player and major win and all that stuff. So it might be hard for that, but
Yeah, and that's only one of the problems. Like that's the one problem I mentioned. The other problem I mentioned is that BC Game really needs a good system as well, like the one Saw had. And I have no confidence in Taz
I think
on
Muturish
being
is
able
alright.
to like. No, I generally don't believe Taz can maintain it, let alone develop it into top 10.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's that much development. I think this team is not lasting in his current form more than this season. I think after this season, something is definitely going to change, obviously. But yeah, I
So
think
I don't think BC Game's doing shit this season.
indeed. But this, I think, which one of these I had this point is we sort of skipped a few points that was related to one earlier ones. I'll pivot to my one here. This is my vibes. My vibes based. I almost said something very wrong. Right brain take, which is that I think last year was the best year for CS esports since before 2020. So like I'll give you my like 2020 onwards sort of explanation for this one. I think both 2020 and 2021 get sort of like disqualified due to COVID / online CS stuff. Like I was there, I watched all of the slop. There was some funny moments looking back, but literally I don't think anybody who's serious about like legacy and land performances really puts any stock in that. Even the end of 2021, like it was cool. The Stockholm viewership record, the major, like that stuff was fun, but I don't think you can salvage the whole year because of it, right? And then 2022, I think, is what a lot of people would point to as like because of phase. But I think everybody remembering 2022 fondly is completely blocking out the second season of 2022, which was absolute dog shit. It was terrible. That was the Rio Major that year. That season was like bereft of events in the season. Like there was like 4-5 events it felt like compared to however many there are usually. Like so I think that's also part of it. And we go to 2023. That was the one major in the year. That major itself had terrible playoffs, right? And that was also the G2 year, which a lot of people have very mixed feelings about. I think coming from the rich chord, you might have a Hooksy hate sort of vibe to it than the Asian perspective of the JKS support. So maybe there's ups and downs in there, but I also think the end of 2023 was interesting with like FaZe and the CS2 resurgence, but I don't think it really was the best year. Like I don't think you can put it in that conversation. And I think last year maybe we'll get some contentious points here. It wasn't really any team's year except Navi had a stretch, and I think Navi are a very uninteresting team to have a period of consistent performance. I don't think anybody was really like interested in that. I think it was sort of cool that it happened, but it wasn't very exciting. And I think, and the story was just Donk showing up. I think this year there's a lot of like up and down storylines. We had more Donk, we had Vitality's legacy making season, we had the Fury resurgence, we had major playoffs that sort of made more sense. And the most like important thing that brought it all together was that Falcons were finally like good enough to hate watch, and the hate watching kept working throughout the entire year, which I think gave a lot of people a lot of fun. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about last year in terms of like where it places?
You said like last year was the most competitive since 2020, right?
So, yeah, so I think 2018 and 2019, if as soon as the more back you go, there's a danger of nostalgia. But like 2018 had a lot of great stuff happen, as did 2019. Depends on your preferences of like who you support also. But
I think 2025 was the most competitive year since 1999. It was the most competitive year in history. In fact, this is gonna be my hot take. Like, 2022 was the like most competitive year up to that point. I would say 2022 is more competitive than 2018 and 2019. And since 2022, every year has become even more competitive
wow,
than the last.
I think 2023 was a confusing period because of CS:GO, CS2. I think like I tend to like my perspective is like an in between of like I think there was a big push about like how there was not as competitive. I just think that the way the CS was played was not fun to watch. Not necessarily because it wasn't competitive. I just think it became unfun to watch. That was the
Yosh is just saying that this year was great for CS because APAC finally won something.
No, that's true. I mean, that's part of the storyline. I thought this was a year of like layered storylines and conversations that we haven't seen since before COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on, Sif.
I'm generally not biased in that. Like, I wouldn't say that because I also believe like before APAC rose, those years were also competitive. 2022, 2023, those years were also competitive. So I think like APAC also becoming competitive is just a coincidence. But like the teams that were able to win and the lower tier teams that were able to go blow for blow for the higher tier teams have become more common, and as a result, it just became more competitive in general.
Yeah,
I don't know about that actually. I feel like it's the same sort of argument that people gave back at the final year of CS, where it's like, oh, everyone can win. That means it's super competitive. Not necessarily, because like just because anyone can win doesn't mean that it's a good thing, right? Like, it can also mean that all the teams aren't really trying, and there is just like, I'm not saying it's good for there to be one dominant team like all the time, but I feel like especially in the second half of the year, like Vitality didn't stop winning because other teams caught up. Vitality stopped winning as much because the honeymoon ended, and like their level of CS went down like, I don't know, 10%, let's say. And that was enough for other teams to like sort of be competitive again. I don't necessarily think that. I don't know. I mean, I think this year was definitely exciting for some people, but I think that I wouldn't put it amongst.
That
I think
I
I think I would put the first half of this year as like definitely interesting from a historical perspective. Like we haven't had such dominance from from any team since 2018 Astralis, and Vitality even beat their records, right? At least some of them. So I think it's interesting historically, but I wouldn't say it was a really great year because I don't know. It didn't feel like anyone. First half of the year, I don't feel like it was. No one was even close to Vitality. It was sort of a foregone conclusion that
I
it felt. I mean,
Mouse were it was there were like, so many
They
moments
were
like
definitely
Falcons at IM
Mouths are
Melbourne,
always
Mouse in like
close.
so many of these like so close but not close enough. Like I
Yeah,
feel
but that's
Mongols
Mouse's
nearly beat
like
them.
motto practically. So close but not close
yeah.
enough. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't put this year at like one of the. I mean, I
Like it
guess by
would yeah.
default it's one of the top years of all time, but like because like, but I wouldn't think it was a. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase what I'm thinking of. Sorry.
No, that's fine. But like in my like if you I think there's a danger like 2018 is the beginning of like 2019 obviously like pre-COVID is all privy to this the problem of like nostalgia like coloring people's thoughts on how good a year was, right? But I think if the way I look at a year and like how good it is, a lot of it is like storylines and how things played out in the conversations, right? And so I think like the vitality thing was a huge point. I think then you have the whole Falcons, like the year of, are they gonna do it? And then preying on that downfall, and then that playing out the entire time was pretty good. I think like as much as maybe Mao's fans don't like it, the failure of Mao was actually kind of like it was kind of fun in a way. Like it was in like a deflating balloon sense maybe, but I kind of liked it. Maybe that's just me. And then obviously there's like the Mongols having their moments, and then I think the Donk in itself, like in himself, maybe not hit, like if we compare it to last year, maybe it's not as good. Obviously the major win was at the end of last year, but then that
I
whole
mean, that's
conversation.
what's crazy is I feel like I mean, and I know the stats prove out for it, but I feel like Donk was more interesting to watch this year as well
Yes,
because he
yes.
was, but he was at least super held back by some of his teammates. So I think this year is good for setting up certain storylines, but it was, in my opinion, it was the culmination of the Vitality storyline at the very least, right? Of like Rops finally moving to Vitality and like it all paying off. Um, after the rumors and all that. But I think that this year was more for the other storylines of the year. If we're talking like storyline wise, I feel like it was more of a transitionary period for a lot of the other storylines, like setting up new rivalries and stuff like that. Like, it was a good. We got the payoff of like Spirit finally beating Falcons in a best of three for the first time ever. I think that was a pretty good payoff. I think that sort of maybe sets up their rivalry better because before it was just like they would win it, Falcons would win every time, literally.
Yeah.
So I think that this year, personally, I don't think it was the most interesting for me, but
But
I think
what
that
do you
it
think about it
sets
like
it.
compared to like how far back would you go like to pick the year that's better than it? That's what I'm interested in.
I mean, the difficulty for me is it depends on what you
Well,
use for like your
with
best year, because like you can have
well, I'm
best in
asking
terms of
you yourself,
like
right?
technical performance. Yeah, and I'm sort of working it out in my mind as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you've got best year in terms of technical performance, and in terms of that, I'd say it was like probably either 2018/19 Astralis or Vitality this year. But in terms of like interesting years, Astralis still had moments where they even during their like dominance, where the games were like pretty close. I don't know why. Personally, for me, it's not very interesting to watch Vitality. I really don't know why. I feel like on paper they're the sort of team that I would love to watch, but I've just never been able to get into them. So I think I'm gonna admit that I'm just biased in that area, and I can't really come up with a good reason why. I just feel like it's I feel like, you know, the years where FaZe got beaten at the major by Cloud9, that's interesting for like historical reasons of being the only NA major. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I've been rambling a lot.
No, that's fine. But I think most people can probably agree that this is the best since COVID. I think it's maybe
I think
maybe FaZe fans don't agree, but
yeah, I do think that FaZe's major win was very like fun to watch, and then also, I mean, Simple's first major win, even though like a load of it was online because of
yeah,
COVID.
but that year, I thought like that's just like a couple events is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Is it really big enough? Like it's the same thing with FaZe. That the FaZe, what we remember them for is doing the three, right? The Kato, Cologne major, and all because the thing about that FaZe year is also that all three of those events that they won were bangers to watch. I think that's another thing that kind of consolidates that in people's minds. Like that Cologne is historic. The Kato was great, although because of the Cologne, people don't remember it as much. And the major was decent. Obviously, like, you know, historical context wise, maybe things get a little bit trickier, right? But then I just think the second half of this season was just terrible. That's my main problem with that year. We're trying to do a year-on-year comparison, but
yeah, I guess I just feel like the second half of this year was also really not great.
no, but I think it was interesting. Like because Vitality ended the year with the major win, I think it redeemed the conversation of like we were like the season sort of began with the question, are they done, and ended with the answering of that question as like they're still here. I kind of like that framing in terms of setting the stage for the whole year being
I
their
mean, sure,
year.
but you can have as much framing as you want. It's just that in my point of view, you can have as much framing as you want, but was it actually fun to watch? No. In my opinion, it was not.
I guess that's
like,
fair. I liked it, but it's this. I guess that's like it comes down to what you like to watch, right? At the end of the day, but I think that's
yeah.
fair. Yeah, let me see.
I think that like
yeah.
Vitality made a lot of mistakes in the second half of the year in their games. Like they just felt super sloppy to watch, and it was like, I don't know, it was irritating because you knew
Because
how
you've
much
seen
better
them
they could
do
be.
it, yeah.
I would say like I don't think Vitality actually fell off at all. Like
At all
I would
is
say
a
even
bit
Vitality
much. I think a
today,
bit they did.
like Vitality
Like
today is even.
objectively, they did.
No, I think it's just every other team started catching up and know how to like
I guess now
exploit
that's from that. I can
them.
see there's an angle with which I can agree with you on that. Is that because of the benefit of having a season to watch, even if they did this, they didn't keep improving. Because to stay at that level, they would have had to get better because everyone would have watched what they're doing. Like, I think one example that is burned in my mind, like if you compare the first season to the second season, is that like their Mirage A ramp pushes were in the first season almost always a success. They always took that space like pretty much for free, or if there was a contest on it, the flashes were good and then they would get kills, and that was like a very easy contest in terms of map control. And I think in the second season, I almost always saw them still go for that move, but it would just not work. Like either they would be wasting their time doing it, or they would be watching for it in a different position and then get punished by doing it. And that's just one example of, I think, what was happening across a lot of maps and like situations, is that people were a lot more ready for what they were doing. I do think also they were like, as a result, maybe doing a lot more arguing between themselves, like the comments we heard, and like what the flow state was not being reached as a team for them compared to that first season, which I think, I mean, that's a high bar to reach. But I think that would definitely be a like hot take, and it's kind of difficult to prove because what we see sort of runs aground contrary to that. But I can see where you're coming from. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, basically, like I don't think like Vitality has gotten worse. It's just that they have plateaued since the start of 2025, and they couldn't improve since, but they also didn't really decline or anything. And while they plateaued, every other team just improved a lot to the point where they can actually start winning against them again.
Yeah, I think there's arguments either way on that. But I mean, listen, I'll move forward because we've had. Speaking of elephants in the room, I think we went this far. We didn't even talk very much about the Mongols, and I think we both got Mongols points, me and Yosh here. So I'll start with my one because it's not fully Mongols related, and I've reasoned this very like in a detailed way. This is like a curated hot take almost, right? I feel like I'm gonna say this: the only country that could win trophies with a fully domestic lineup right now is Mongolia. You'll say there'll be contention. Let me get through this, right? In the first place, like the only top sort of contenders for national teams, we got Brazil, Turkey, aka Aurora, Russia/Ukraine. Like they were bait, and then we have like Paravision style, and we'll get to Spirit later. And then we have Mongolia and the Mongols, and then maybe we had Denmark, but obviously we don't have Denmark anymore. And of course, there's obviously like national teams in most countries, but like they're not worth mentioning when we're talking about winning trophies. So if we start sort of picking that apart, we can immediately like remove Ukraine from the conversation. Where I don't think Bait's gonna reach that level, or unless like even if Simple joined that team, they're not gonna be lifting trophies. And I think the biggest contention, and I sort of toyed with this, and I might have to fall back on this point, is that I think Spirit is the best team with a Russian core.
You
right?
can't count Spirit because Spirit has Zontex.
Yes, that's another
Zontex
thing,
is
right?
Ukrainian.
Yes, and they have Tanero, who is Belarusian. But the thing, if there was to be a team that is in the position to make a 5-man Russian-speaking lineup that is all Russian players, it would be Spirit, because if we go to second in the rankings, it's Paravision or VP, and I don't think any of those guys are in a position to win trophies, right? And I think part of sort of inbuilt in this take is the idea that I think if Spirit fails with this lineup, or even if they succeed, I'm still right, because it's not a 5-man Russian lineup, but if they fail, I think if you take the possibility of them replacing those 2 players and going with 2 Russian players, or going international, I think it's more likely that they go international, then they go back to 5 Russian. That's like another thing. And then
yeah, I mean, I guess the main flaw for Spirit is sort of the question mark about the IGL, and the only person who I could really think would be a Russian-speaking IGL would be James, right?
Well, there's Boomich also, right? James and Boomich.
I guess there's Boomich,
yeah,
right?
well, they've got Chopper and now they have Magix. Boomich surely is in the same level of conversation.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Yeah, but I don't like I feel like they would rather go international around Dunk if they're gonna keep him than to go to the well on that. That's just my like part of my vibes based opinion of about whatever. And also then if we're going to go to the other countries, right? We got Brazil. And I think we've seen over the past like since Furia and doing this, I think they've proven that Brazil can't build a lineup of 5 Brazilians, whether it's internal issues, whether they don't have the players to do it. I just think they've sort of shown that they can't have a 5-man Brazilian lineup that contends for trophies. So they literally had to go outside of the region, go international speaking, even with a Brazilian core, to get to that point. Even if they have the players, they just refuse to agree to build the team. And I feel like the same thing is sort of happening in these Russian teams. Like I feel like by now, like 2, 3, 4 years ago, we were having this conversation about how so many talented riflers are from CIS and from Russia, and I feel like that conversation is really deflated. Like apart from like the Spirit and the Spirit graduation team, like Kyosuke, we kind of the second best Russian team is really like they barely made it to the major. Like it's not even at the point of being a contender at all. And I feel like that's like a big downslide. I feel like you'd rather be learning English as a Russian player and trying to get into an international team if you can escape, basically, rather than being stuck in this sort of whatever's going on in that domestic scene. And I honestly, like, I'm saying this, like, as part of when I was writing this take, I forgot about Aurora until the very end, which made me laugh because I feel like Aurora is also making me laugh. If they were going to win trophies and be contending, they would have done it this year. I feel like the time is done. That's just my take on that. But what do you guys think?
I still think our full Russian roster has. I'm gonna be honest. The full Russian roster has around an equal chance to win as a full Mongolian.
Yeah, but then I'm saying they would have to build it, is what I'm saying, and they haven't built it. Whereas the Mongols
they
exist already, even if it's not like trophy yet. We don't know what Cobra Zero can do, and Senzu's a high bar, but
they kinda like just. I mean, they could really just kick Sontics, and that's all they would have to do. But
no,
yeah,
Tanira is
I
not
see your
Russian. Tanira is not Russian.
point. Yeah, he's Belarusian. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a sneaky. I'm being sneaky with it because of Spirit's like 3-man core. They would have to remove those two and then get 2 Russian players, and then win trophies, which is, I mean, plausible. But I don't think it's. I think if you're doing some like that seems unlikely to me, looking at the direction that they're taking.
I also think like Brazil is also actually capable of building a 5 Brazilian team that can actually lift trophies.
If
It's
they were
just that
capable, I mean, we've been
at the
waiting a
current
long time.
yeah, but at the current moment, there's no point in Furia in doing so because like the Furia system and players are working well. While like, like I don't see like Pain or Legacy. Like they're almost there. They're definitely almost there. Legacy even won CAC, which is like tier 1.5. So like they're definitely capable. It's just that it's currently unlikely, and we might have to wait a while. But I think it's definitely possible for Brazil to do that.
Sif, what do you think? Have I curated this take appropriately?
I think it's reasonable enough, to be honest. There's not too many like contenders out there of who could really be another team which could you know, be a full domestic lineup at the moment, at least. And it doesn't look like any teams are going to want to, you know, risk it because of the current VRS system of like losing VRS points if you change like the majority of the team. So I think by default you're pretty much, yeah, they Mongols definitely would have the best chance.
I think it's sort of to get a sidebar on Aurora, because I feel like I want to talk about them, but I'm sort of like mourning the death of Aurora as a team that's gonna get like any better. Like this Soulfly edition, I feel like it's just another. It's like a callback to their rotating door in Eternal Fire days before they became even half decent. And I feel like they were close, but I don't like. Do you agree with? If it is the general consensus that Aurora is just gonna get worse, not better?
I think they will just stagnate. But like, here's the thing: I also think Aurora is really close to being a top 5 team and a trophy contender. They just really need to find a replacement for Major.
Yeah,
I think that's literally the only thing.
but
holding them back
is
from
there
Major.
another Turkish guy? I don't even know.
Major, the IGL.
Yeah.
with,
I'm
like,
saying, but to
35.
replace him, who's gonna take the mantle, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. They need to find a good IGL to replace him. Like, even though Aurora is really old, like Voxic and Centaurs are like 30, 31 now, I think.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but it goes back to the point that even though they're that old, they're mechanically they're still really good. Like, it doesn't seem they're like becoming any
Well,
worse,
Woxic
like or
is
even
like
anytime.
Woxic is okay. I mean, Orpa Climate is not great, so he's sort of skating by. I can't say I'm impressed by him.
Again, I don't think it's Voxic's fault that he's bad. I think it's Major and his system's fault. Like Aurora has like all
Woxic's
the
old
pieces
enough
except
to
for the
know
IG.
better. I'm not gonna let him like if he was a younger Orpa, like he's been through systems, he's been through like teams. If it's like how many times can you let your performance be dictated by somebody else? At a certain point, you have to take agency, especially as an Orpa.
Yeah, but like it would be all fake if they just have a good IGL and like they replace Major's
Maybe.
system.
I think if they went
That's
if
all
they
it
went
would take.
international with IGL and some pieces, then they could actually get to some options. But see, if do you have any Aurora takes, or can we move on?
Let's just move on.
Listen, as for the best, when we're talking about Aurora fan base wise, also. Uh, I forgot. I was gonna
Let's
say
ask
something in
Spongy
Turkish. I
Street.
forgot. Çok güzel, I think, is that means something nice. Let's talk about the maybe this should be maybe the final take, unless I missed one here. The Mongols in general, because it sort of builds off of what I was saying about the prospects. You were talking about the Mongols in your last take, Yosh, and about Asian CS in general. It would be remiss of us if we didn't let you wax lyrical about Asian CS.
The other Mongols take I have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Like I am not worried at all about like Mongols' performance this year. I think, in fact, they'll be the team to improve the most this year, or most likely to do so. Like I gained this confidence after seeing like Control Standard and the Mongols perform as well as they did, even without their star players and team. Because this to me just proves that the the, Mon- the Mongols playing well and having good performances isn't based on a flash in a pan or based on a single star player, but just the system Mara has built that has enabled them to rise to that level. Like Mongols isn't about just the players playing well; it's about the team as a whole functioning well, and that Mara has also shown by getting controllers that he could just easily replace the part and have the team still be a contender, which really brings a lot of confidence into not only the team but the long-term stability to the region. Like it's really rare you can get a coach or system this well in a Counter Strike team. So that my main concern isn't about like how well Mongols will play in the future because I think they have a really bright future ahead of them. My concern is the teams of the rest of the region. Like in the last 6 months, for example, the last 6 months, Lin Vision just completely disappeared completely from the scene. Like they're not
Yes.
even the top 5 team in Asia anymore. Lin Vision. Like most recently, they're losing to Filipino 5 stacks, which is like absurd. And they went 0-3 in the major, right after getting top 16 in Austin and giving us an extra spot. And then we have like teams like FlyQuest, which basically is on the same level since 2022. And like I don't see any other team that has stepped up in the same level as the Mongols did. Like the most hope I have after Mongols in Asia, it's probably Tyloo, I think.
Yeah, they had a
Like
zero, right?
yeah, like they have issues. They definitely have issues with the system, but they haven't completely collapsed like LVG did, and have shown they have like much more potential than FlyQuest has shown. Like
I mean,
they won Fisher Playground 1, which is really impressive. They managed to beat Astralis 3-1 after being a map down, and that's really impressive. Even though if Astralis is not a top team, and I think that really shows that Tyloo has a huge potential. But even then, I would say it's mostly unrealized, and they still have a long way to go to catch up to Mongols. Another team I would say that like has the potential like Mongols is Hotu. like okay, a lot of you are gonna say Ho2 is a European team because like Bob and HLTV say so, but in my eyes, like Bob and HLTV are illegitimate. The Middle East, North Africa, and Siberia are all rightfully part of the Asian region.
We're
They
making
have
statements
historically
here.
played in
Right.
We're
Asian
making
qualifiers,
statements.
and yeah, they have historically played in Asian qualifiers and relate more to Asia than EU. So to me, teams like Gigi Hao and Ho2 are Asian to me. They are as Asian as Flycat and Monk. But yeah, I have seen Ho2 play. I also think Ho2 has a lot of potential. They have come close to beating teams like Aurora, and they have beaten teams like Mongoose before. I think really they just need more top tier experience and continue grinding. And I think we might even see them in the top 10 this year. Ho2. I think Duke Fijera is a really underrated coach. He knows what he's doing, and I have confidence in him to elevate and utilize players like Norbert. Yeah, these are the two teams I have the most hope in Asia, other than Mongols. But other than that, there's literally nothing to look at in Asia. There's like very little prospects. There are a few players from within Mongols Academy and some new Chinese players like Zero or June 7, but when you look at Europe, they have like dozens of academy teams. They have like dozens of new pro players every year to rise up to the occasion. Asia just doesn't have that. I looked at the HLTV teams list the other day. I looked at the top 200, and like 2/3 of them are European. Europe alone has more teams than both. Europe alone has twice as many teams as all of Asia and the Americas combined, and they just have a much bigger talent pipeline that can compete with everything else. Well, Asia just doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So my biggest fear is that like once the Mongols are gone, Asia is just gonna go into another dark age, and not in the long run, nothing's gonna change. Like, I I know Mongols is trying to change that with like Mongols Academy, and which have already produced some of good players to join some Mongolian 2-2 teams. But yeah, my main concern is literally every other team in the region. They haven't like proven themselves to be able to compete in the top dogs or even just reach playoffs in general.
Yeah.
And neither have their talent pipelines have been proven to be able to compete to any degree. Like we barely have anything.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, even
Other
with
than
like
Mongols.
before I pass this off to Sif, like I'll do things. One, I'll talk more later afterwards. But like, I mean, Tai Lu is not really like historically that team building is really not been that good. We looked at Lin Vision for a long time as being like, undergone building teams from the scraps and still making it work. They had Starry for a while, etc., etc. Another thing also, this is just completely unrelated, but I needed to bring it up, is that can anybody name the players currently on the roster of Eternal Fire? Because I just find it really funny. I just want you guys to hear these names.
Nah.
So Eternal Fire currently consists of Calix, Rigon, Waro 2K, and M Star. I just found that an incredible spend of time.
I
Anyway,
haven't heard Rigon's name in a long while.
that's the appropriate reaction. Sift, before I joined Yosh in APAC discussion, do you have any takes on what he's talking about Asian Counter Strike wise? What's your depth of the issue knowledge wise?
I'm not gonna lie. The only APAC team that I've really watched much has been Mongols, so I don't feel like I'm necessarily equipped to speak too much on the issue. But from my initial impression, you do seem to have the long and the short of it in terms of like there don't seem to be too many teams which are like really good outside of Mongols. So it is sort of interesting to see where things will go once or if I should say the Mongols sort of lose their I don't want to say dominance, but if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, again, yeah, I'm fully confident in Mara's ability to integrate like Cobra Zero into the system. I generally think if the system remains and Cobra Zero plays them two roles, he could also become an HLTV 20 player by 2026 as well. Yeah, Mongols are like, I generally don't think they will fall off. Like they are the most secure part of Asia. It's just that everything else isn't secure and isn't really developing.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
if I like talk on this year, I feel like it was sort of like they gave us hope and then they sort of took the hope away. Like we had Tai Lu sort of like, I mean that the result there. Which one was it? It was the Fisher result, right? That had everybody sort of looking into whether this could actually be something, and then of course literally nothing came of it. They just completely were not relevant. Now I will say replace it. The one thing that I'm like cautiously optimistic about Zero. Like I looked into the his stats in the extremes land were actually like kind of incredible. Like he was pretty good, all things considered. Now, of course, we've sort of sung this song before of a random Chinese player joining one of these top Chinese teams and just doing nothing with the opportunity. But if anybody, if
I can vouch for Zero. I can vouch for Zero.
yeah,
Zero is he's definitely gonna be a good beat. It's definitely an upgrade for Tyloo. I can
yeah,
vouch for him.
over Attacker for sure. Attacker, like he had his like spots of veterancy. I think he's better. He's much better off being a support staff kind of Zipnik's in Mao's kind of role. Not that that's worked out for Mao's, to be clear, but to try and level them up from the outside rather than being in the server. Like he was at moments in the second half of the year, he was diabolically like missing. He did not contribute at all in the server, so I think that's part's good. Now it would be sort of this is the real. I've mentioned this. The elephant has been in the room multiple times. This is a true elephant. We're talking about
We've
whatever
got a
the
lot
hell,
of elephants.
I know whatever the hell was going on with the allegations and the like controversies with the Lin Vision players. Like there was Zaka and there also somebody else. Maybe I'm misremembering things like that. That was me. I don't know how much that played a role in it. Regardless, it is from a Counter-Strike perspective. It is kind of a shame that Zaka was kind of everybody was very impressed with his opening prowess, and now we sort of don't. Like Tyloo has fallen basically into obscurity. Yosh already mentioned that, and
Tyloo has fallen.
no, Lin Vision.
Sorry. No. I was. It's just a meme.
No, I know what you mean. I get it, but and then the further, I don't even want to talk about FlyQuest. It's just gonna piss me off. But I guess I'll do it. Spend my life's work watching these fucking guys disappoint. The worst part is they never fall so far out of obscurity as for me to lose all hope. There's always one result. There's always one moment. There's always a moment of looking at them where I'm like, okay, this is the time they're gonna do something. And if there's any moment, it was gonna be last season or this next season. I have a prediction going that they're gonna make one playoffs. If it doesn't work next season, then that prediction's shot. Of course, I'm delusional for even making it. But like they've stagnated so much that I don't care anymore. I'm just sort of they're in my like don't hope, just be delusional list. And then obviously as you go down once you get past those three names, Tyloo, Lin Vision, and FlyQuest, you enter the realm of complete obscurity and like nobodies. Then you have to start like talking about the teams that I end up commentating. In fact, I'm going to be commentating like the who don't participate really in international tier competition, pretty much only in like the lower levels of domestic competition, and don't break out at all.
Well,
yeah, you were saying something?
although remember O2 and GG How do these two teams as well. These two teams are important.
What is who's on GG? I need to check. GG How. Okay, I mean, for the results weren't even, or the results are okay, but like I'm Ho2 maybe because they at least can and have played internationally, like they've been over. GG How, you're not gonna fool me, you know. There's players are good on the GG How. Their talents would be better served separated.
Yeah, definitely.
They're like
there's definitely like Ho2 definitely has way more potential than
Yeah,
GG
as a
Hao,
team,
like,
Hotu, I believe in. Gigi Hao, I feel like Mini is a decent player. I think he's the Opa, right, of that team. Obviously, we know Boros, kind of all aim Falcons situation. We know about that. And then the further down in the agency S list, I sort of agree. Like, it's the only thing I will say is that I feel like there is some like bubbling of like investment is going up in terms of trying to build some Chinese only pipelines. Like, I think they're doing some VRS gaming stuff over there by doing China only tournaments and like trying to slowly build that up. I think that might take a while, whether it works or not. But the rest of Asia, for sure, apart from some like, I think we'll also have to talk about the fact that ATOX being banned has completely fucked Mongolia's second best opportunity. Like that took away like a team that was genuinely on the fringe of being top 20 and showing up in tournaments. I mean that's something that I'll never forgive them for fucking like we were doing so well, and you know they just had to go and do that, which is a real tragedy. But it's sort of part of the whole conversation. We've sort of been the middle of it doesn't really exist right now. There's like the bottom, then we have Mongols at the top, and then we sort of have Tailu, and we don't really have Lin Vision anymore. And then there's a big void. That void needs to be filled to have a proper like Asian CS lineage. But I'm with you with the sort of lack of optimism on that. To be honest with you.
yeah. Well, I always say like my this is all the same. Like there's Mongols on the top, like on the really top, and then there's just this huge gap between Mongols and the rest of Asia. And then between the gap, there's like Kailu and Ho2,
Yeah.
and then there's just an abyss basically.
Yeah, but I think overall, I think that sort of that rounds out our point. Did I miss any? I think I covered everyone's points here. Did I miss any of my own? I feel like I may have missed one of my own. No, we're good. But you know what? Just to round off the conversation, let's end where we started. Donko Zaiwu, who's number one in HLTV's ranking, and your personal one, if it differs. What do you think? Sift, you go.
Your mic is muted.
Okay, well, Yosh, you go first then.
Yeah.
Oh,
Number
I just
one,
realized I was muted.
No, that's fine.
yeah, number one is I think on HLTV it's probably Saiwu. His year is just that dominant, and as much as I like Dog, I think I'll have to go give it to Saiwu as well because again because he's not only good as an individual player but as a team player as well. He's able to like integrate into the his own system better as well. So yeah, I think Saiwu definitely deserves Player of the Year this year.
Sift. Donk, Zaiwu,
I think,
HLTV, and you go.
Yeah, I think HLTV is gonna put Zaiwu, and because they seem to be prioritizing team stuff, but I think Donk's individual performance puts him head and shoulders above even Zaiwu as the best individual. He's definitely got it, especially as he's playing in an entry rifling position, and he still has like 0.1 better HLTV rating than Zaiwu in majors. That is crazy. In terms of who's actually going to win it on HLTV ratings, as I said, Zaiwu probably will, but Donk deserves it in my opinion.
Well, this is kind of perfect because I'll take the complete other spot. I think for me it's Donk personally. I think regardless of results, what he's done this year, just every time you watch him, you just think it can't be done, and it is done every single time. It's like
That's what I was saying.
yeah, it's delusional. But honestly, I
Sorry.
think no, all good.
Sorry.
But the I think HLTV is gonna cave this time because maybe this is like metagaming it. I think they've sort of taken it for being team results biased and Zaiwu biased. And I mean, if Shiro is number 5, I think that sort of that may bode well. Or maybe you can even argue it could be number 4, but whatever, right? That's sort of nitpicking. I think the fact he's so much better, it's not even like the margins aren't even in like the 0.01. The margins are like much larger than that. So I think this time, I think they have to give it up. I think this is like a simple 2018 situation in terms of you can't deny greatness of this level. If they want to be taken seriously as like, okay, this number 1 was really the number 1, I think they have to just put Donk number 1 and then just tank the Zywoo fan hate for the rest of mankind's history, which is inevitable regardless of the result. Even if the Zywoo gets number 1, it's gonna happen. But I think that's a pretty good place for us to round off. Another great episode. As always, like, comment, subscribe. What? You have a final point?
Like, yeah.
Go on.
I don't really care. I don't care about full win player of the year. I care about full win coach of the year because Mara deserves it.
That's you know what? Let me get our attention on that before we end it, because I do want to talk about that. You've reminded me. Coach of the year is an interesting conversation because I think there's different points. There's a different reason to put it forwards for the 3 options, which I think are contending. What's the HLTV's top 3? I think they put Halley in, right? Instead of Cyclone.
I think it was Halley, Mara, and
Xtaz,
Xtaz.
XQC, yeah. I'm gonna say this up front, and I'm kind of assuming people. I don't think Halley deserves to be in the top 3 this year at all. Like, I don't know why he's there. If it should be Cyclone in the top 3. Like that, because of that. Mouse was pretty consistent for a while. Maybe the end of the year was pretty bad, but I think because if I do that swap, then the conversation becomes interesting. Because then you have Xtaz, the results are undeniable, but because the players and the team is so good, you sort of question how much he's doing. And then you have Mara, and then there's obviously the region buff talking about how plays and situations from basically nowhere into relevancy. Then the controller stand-in plug and play situation shows some strength of the system, which you tend to attribute to the coach and IGL. And then for me, Cyclone, in terms of getting Shui goes and how much of Mao's manages to stay relevant in keeping the system together, and sort of the distribution of calling, I think from the top has to be managed by Cyclone. So what do you guys think? Where do you divide up that situation?
Okay, I gotta be honest. As much as many trophies Xtaz has won this year, like, even though you really can't really see behind it, I really doubt it because of Xtaz. Like, because the players he had and the players that he has is already all really experienced and know how to work as a team. Especially APAC and Zywoo, the duo that played together for a long time, and like they already have a system developed between them even before Xtaz joined. And Xtaz has like 6 or 7 analysts working for him, which definitely means even though if he has to make a entirely new system, which I doubt, it is because he has like an entire F1 mechanic team behind him that's supporting him in doing that. Mara, on the other hand, basically built everything from scratch, using players that are much less experienced with much less firepower, and he developed them individually all by himself with no other staff helping him. So yeah, I think that's why Mara deserves coach of the year.
I sort of agree there. It's just the coaching role is so obtuse in terms of like it's so difficult to see how much one person contributes or doesn't contribute most of the time. Like there's a lot of effect. I think a lot of other people have made this exact same point that like with players you can have a number and you can point at it and go, look, rating higher, but with coaches, like you don't get to listen in on comms, you don't get to see what they do in training, you don't get to see all the other ephemeral sort of things. I will say separately, does HLTV have like a is it always that their best player is separate from their number 1, or is it
what do
always
you mean?
as in So would it be possible for them to put Zaiwu as their number one player, but then their player of the year
No, the
be
player
Dom?
of the year is that's the same ranking. That one is
Right.
yeah.
It's the
That
same.
specific
Yeah.
award is just number one. Like I don't think that's a separate thing.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I think for the coaching, it's so difficult to tell. I think that Mara probably should win it, especially as like how much there's that classic interview. Was that this year of I can't remember who it was with on the Mongols team, but saying that like Mara basically predicted their entire like what their entire game plan against I think it was versus Na'Vi or Falcons, something like that.
Yosh, do you remember? Because I don't remember.
Well,
There was some sort of
I've seen like from what I've seen from the Mongols blogs, usually like the analytic work is done by Mara and the players together. Like the players
yeah,
help like with Mara.
but all I meant was that I I think that given how much praise the Mongols players have given Mara, and like there has been some proof in it with the like anti-stratting for I think it was either Falcons or Navi, as I said. I think Mara is very close to getting it, but again, like Vitality's dominant first 6 months are so like hard to account for, like depending on like what HLTV rates themselves. So
Yeah, I think for me, I sort of like this isn't fair to Extaz. This is just like we know we only know what we can get insight wise, and then some sort of assumptions about how teams work. So when we're talking about like okay the success of a team, there's like if Vitality having so many like talented players and individuals. Like if we consider who was good before Xtaz, right? Apex has been around long enough. I don't like they might have a special bond, but I don't think Xtaz made Apex good. I think maybe at the beginning, but there was a period of zoning, and then they've won with and without him, right? Although you could maybe say something special about that combination as a moment. Zaiwu is Zaiwu. We know about Zaiwu. I don't think we need to talk about Zaiwu and Xtaz in a special way, for me at least. And then Rops was, great before. Like that one I don't think, apart from making the choice, right? And then we obviously know Mezi as a talented player and role player, especially before joining as well. And then Flames was maybe the only situation where he was like a sort of unrefined talent, has maybe been more refined as he joined. But that's sort of speaking to a majority of the team and a majority of the reasons for the team's success being established before that point. And for me, it just means I can't consider him as much as I consider other people. And then when I think about like how the build up of talent, Cyclone building the team, a lot of the academy players coming from the academy himself of Mao's, constantly being a part of their development, and then with the IGL loss, still maintaining so much relevance with a completely new IGL. I kind of have to attribute a lot of the success in that situation to him because of how involved he was throughout that whole time and how the players being good, they became good while he was sort of there. And the same thing is true for Mara. That's sort of like my barometer in lack of any other information. Like if there was a bunch of interviews and behind the scenes footage and maybe we got more out of Xtaz, then I could have a conversation. But for me, I think honestly, I would give it to Cyclone only because of I just think it's sort of I'm like countering the bias, even though I don't think the Mouse could have done better. I still think like him and Mara may be neck and neck in my eyes, but that's just how I feel.
I want to add like I think it would be better if HLTV split the award into Coach of the Year and the analyst or staff team of the year.
But that once it's already tenuous enough that the coach of the year is something that can be awarded. It's if we got into analyst, then we would really be like HLTV would be scraping at just random stuff to try and figure that out. That wouldn't even be plausible. You would have to like,
Yeah.
who would even decide that on what account? Like, we're gonna have to have like an eye test consensus. So we're gonna look at tactics. We don't know who's responsible for what. Like that's
Yeah,
beyond
that's
the scope.
impossible to.
Yeah, it would be nice, but like also every team doesn't have an analyst. Almost every team has a coach, so it's like
The teams like good enough to be nominated for like these awards usually have like an entire staff team of analysts,
true.
sports psychologists,
Yeah.
and all that.
but we sort of like apart from stuff like sports psychologists, we sort of tend to put that stuff under the umbrella of the coach unless the analyst is somebody that we really know by name. Like I think how many analysts do we even know the names of? We know Damaz Darova because he stood in for a coach. And it's not like we did any favors by being there. I know Lucid, who was the analyst of like FaZe and some other teams here and there on Twitter. And Innershine, maybe, because he became a coach. The only reason we know them is because they like became coaches. We don't know any analysts who are purely analysts, I feel like. Flashy even, right? They're only relevant because they become coaches. So I think that's sort of the line we've drawn sort of ends there. But yeah, I think that's a good stopping point for our points. I think we covered a fair amount going into 2026. Hopefully I get more episodes out. I just need to like get off my ass. If I do it regularly, I'll make a habit out of it. And then hope for a good year of CS. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe as always. I mean, it's a YouTube thing. I have to say it as well because whenever you say
Baller?
yeah, they've got the what.
Where's Baller? He still hasn't appeared yet.
Bolo is supposed to be. He's been on episode in the past. He was supposed to show up. Honestly, my prediction is that he fell asleep because of the time zone, which is fair. But he can save his takes for the next episode. To be honest, that's the benefit of it. I could have used it, but I didn't want to spoil those because they could come in handy later on. But yeah, that's all. That's all I got. Thank you very much.